Beat It AT, what up? Beat It AT, what up? Beat It
What's up, everyone? It is Andrew of Beat It AT. In this video, I have a Tyga type of beat for you guys. It is more of like that West Coast club type of sound with a bit of like ethnic and flute with a bit of a vocal chop from Arcade by Output. It's a pretty simple beat, but it kind of gets the job done. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the full beat for you. And then after that, we are going to get started on breaking it down. So that was kind of like the gist of the beat. It kind of just loops over, so you're not really going to be missing anything new by me not playing chorus 2, verse 2, chorus 3, outro. It pretty much just loops over, keeping it simple. So I'm going to go ahead and we are going to start off with breaking down the melody, the main instruments, not including the drums and 808. So if I look in here, we got a flute, strings, and vocals. And the vocals are from Arcade by Output. And then we got the strings and flute from Omnisphere. So part of the thing is, before we even get started with the melody and such, we got to know, are we in the right tempo for that style? So for Tyga, more specifically on that West Coast bop, groove club style, that's around like the 95 to 110 BPM, around that area. And so as you guys can see in here, we are at 110 BPM, allowing us to kind of get in that pocket. So I could tell you guys what key we're in. We are in A sharp minor. So A sharp minor, go to helpers, scale highlighting, A sharp. You guys could see that the notes, we are all on A sharp. I can't remember the exact scale, but where you get that Arabic, Middle Eastern ethnic vibe is by picking a lot of notes that are kind of close to each other. You guys can see I go from C to A sharp. There's not much of a gap, and then C sharp, C, A sharp, C, C, A sharp, G to A sharp, or I'm sorry, G sharp to A sharp, and then all these notes are relatively very close. And I'm sure someone who's trained in music theory that sees this video, if they don't mind explaining that in the comments, that would be appreciated, or indicating what exact scale, because a lot of times scales kind of interchange with you can have multiple scales within similar note patterns, or scales can in a sense overlap. So although we are in A sharp minor, we are definitely, at least with this flute, if I were to mute everything but the flute, so muting the vocals in that string instrument, it looks like it's this mellotron flute. Yeah, it's that mellotron flute. So when you add that on top of this string, let's see it. Pensive Charingo, then ethnic world. So kind of fits that vibe. It's not a complex melody. I'm really only shifting between a couple keys, and we're all within obviously the same scale. I'm not trying to go out of this scale. I'm trying to keep it simple. It's a club song, so F sharp, A sharp, A sharp. So it's pretty simple. Nothing. These are melodies that you guys can come up with very easily. You guys just looking at how I'm kind of placing these notes around. So when we add that flute and string together, let me just rename this to flute. And it kind of helps with that when these notes in that like sitar sounding string instrument kind of bounce back with our flute. You could see where they kind of hit. Doing kind of like elements and melody structures like that will kind of help us with keeping all the notes in sync together, allowing more of a fluid bounce. So if I go back and we see this vocal, it was from Arcade, and it was called, the preset's called Give and Take. A sharp minor, you guys kind of see my settings. I wasn't really focused on having any delay or reverb from there, because what I did after the fact was I add a Valhalla vintage verb, which I love Valhalla's reverbs. I've been using them a ton. And then I use this pitch shifter, so it's like an octave down, but that's just adding more of that sound to the vocal, like without it. Now with it. And I kind of just add that little bit at the end because it kind of tightens up that melody and loops it back. So that's pretty much it for the melody. There's really no variations or any changes to the core melody other than throughout the verse, intro, and such. I take out certain elements, so I might remove the flute in the verse, and I will remove the arcade from the verse. But besides that, I'm not changing the notes and melodies. I could, if I omit a couple notes, maybe I would omit these top ones from the string instrument. But for simplicity's sake and to make it easier on the song, the artist and songwriter, I'm not going to try to introduce too many melodies or too many counter melodies. So that's it for breaking down the melody. Before we go too far into breaking down the drum patterns, I do want to point out something. I've been using Atmosphere and Arcade for a while. Arcade is kind of getting picked up by a lot of the YouTube beat makers and Instagram beat makers, but it's actually phenomenal, and I've been using it. I found Arcade probably a year ago because through like a Facebook ad or Instagram ad, not Facebook, but Instagram ad. And I checked it out, and you pay like $10 a month and you get like an incredible library of different sounds and sound patches to use. more in like a loop sense. I never use arcade as like my instrument. Or like main instrument. I always use arcade to, add something on top of a beat. I'll usually make the main melody, and then if I feel like it's missing something, I'll add arcade on top of that. Like if I were to have this beat without that vocal, it would still be a Tyga type beat on West Coast, but it definitely ties it in more with that vocal sample.
Beat It AT, what up?
I mean, you don't need the vocal, but without it, the beat would sound just quite bare. So I would highly suggest you guys, everyone's already talks about Omnisphere, and everyone probably already has Omnisphere or a pirated version of Omnisphere or something of sorts. So I'm not going to sit here and, recommend Omnisphere because everyone kind of already knows that. But I will sit here and say you guys should invest in arcade. I don't think there's a way for you guys to crack it. Just pay the $10 or $15, whatever it is, a month, and you guys will enjoy it. I promise. It's amazing. I probably use it on every single day, not on every beat, but on a lot of beats. So lots to choose from in there as well. And I think you guys can even make your own kind of like libraries in arcade as well. It's great. So that's all I'm really gonna dive into about the VSTs and such. I figured that would, if there's someone out there that doesn't have it or needs something that's kind of cheap and just wants to add it on top of whatever they got, really recommend Output's arcade. The Output has other VSTs and software too, as such as like Exhale. So check them out. I'm not sure if a lot of people are talking about it, but I've been noticing a little bit of popularity in it. All right, so moving on, we are going to break down the drums that I have in here. So the drums that I had, I kind of designed them after like the West Coast club, Tyga, bounce. So I'm going to go ahead and play our chorus drums. I'm going to go ahead and mute our instruments. Actually, I'll play them for you guys just first. So playing them, let's play it without it. And we are in the key of A sharp minor at 110 BPM, making the West Coast type of style. It's key to have the right BPM. The key, you can kind of switch it around. The key does play a factor, more so in the mood of the song or beat, but the BPM is what's gonna really determine is it that West Coast. And a lot of West Coast stuff is between the 90 to 115 beats per minute range. That's why we're at 110. We're just a little bit fast, but it's still within that range. So I'm gonna play everything without the vocals, flute, and the string instrument. So, as you guys could kind of notice, there was kind of like a groove with that 808. So if we look at the 808, it starts on the A sharp, and then it has this slide. And it comes back right on that second measure. And then right before it goes into the third measure, it pops up to that F and comes back down. And as you guys could see, I'm kind of reflecting a lot of this 808 around the melody of the main melody, the sitar or the string instrument, whatever it is. And so on that F, it comes up, comes back down, slides down, kind of like how it did in the first measure. But the listener is kind of anticipating that 808 to come right there, but it doesn't. It actually comes on where that clap is at right there. And it kind of has this weird bounce. Normally I wouldn't put an 808 right on the clap. And it just goes dun dun, goes up. So it's kind of like just trying to pull in the listener. And then we have these claps coming in up here. I'm kind of bouncing around, so I apologize. So in these claps, have these claps rising up in velocity or volume. So this one hits a little bit lighter than this one. We just got a simple two-step hi-hat, very simple, just keeping the rhythm. Then we got these reverb hi-hats. They just add a little bit of beef. It's usually only on the clap where there's like that lead in. You can kind of hear that echo of that clap. Whereas you don't hear it there. So then over here we got this West Coast type of percussion, clav type of ding. So I'm just doing it, very sparingly. Just two right there, and then one right there, kind of on that offbeat to add to that bounce. Then we got this open hat. If you guys like these drums, be sure to check out the AT Sound Kit 5. I'll put the link to the AT Sound Kit 5 down in the link below. We have a whole bunch of drum kits over at the Beat It AT website, so I highly suggest you guys to check them out. Almost all my drums are from those kits. And some of these are even from free sample kits that we have. We have free sample kits and drum kits, as well as high quality premium drum kits that you guys can buy. So in here I got this open hat. Kind of like this electronic open hat. It's just going every other one on that offbeat. I don't think I used that one at all in this. See, I didn't even use these three drums. So then when I add this, I got this, we don't have this kick. Got this little, just that West Coast Vox, that generic chant you hear in like DJ Mustard type of beats. So when I add that kick adds that punch. I only have the kick pretty much wherever the 808 hits, actually. I think that the kick hits at all 808 parts. Yeah, it just doesn't hit on those slides. You see, those are the slides. So the kick is just trying to add that emphasis every time that 808 comes in. So let's go into the next pattern. So what we got over here. I think the only change we got is the clap. Which, in order to do one of those slides, it's really simple. Just click in a clap. I'm going to do Shift E to pull up the select tool, which is right there. Select it, Alt, and then U. Then you can see it's that one right there. Accept, Shift P to pull up our pencil tool. Right click, and I'm holding the right button on my mouse. I'm gonna drag it down like that. So then it'll do the slide. So I'm just gonna remove that since we don't need it. I think that's the only change on this one. So we're gonna go to this one real quick. What do we got here? So when we get to this section, I added some additional kicks to add more of a bounce to it. I'm just kind of mimicking that pattern over there and just adding a little bit of a bump. So that kick we're adding. And we're going to go back to that clap. riser. And then when we continue throughout the song, we pull back a lot of the elements. So the kick is still there. The difference is we got rid of the hi-hat and we got rid of these bouncing claps, as you can see. And as we move from this pattern to this pattern, we don't have those kicks. We have kicks, but we don't have the bounce kick. The tempo kind of changes because we got rid of that hi-hat that added that every 2-step bounce. And that's just an easy indicator to the artist and songwriter that, okay, this is a change. So usually they would know that, okay, this is the verse because there's less elements coming in. Less elements in the verse means there's more room for the artist to kind of perform or fit more words into there. Because as an artist is saying a lot of words or having a lot of ad-libs in certain elements, it uses up space. The chorus is going to be something simple, catchy, and repetitive. So although there might be a lot of layers on the vocal, it's going to be something fairly simple. He's not going to try to bar you to death in the verse. And if he is, the song's beat elements will be kind of wrapped around that in the correct sense. So continuing on, we got this part right here. We add in these bounced kicks, and then we also add these claps. And then we just, on this one, we bring in the hi-hats. And then when we get up to this part, we're coming back into that chorus. So I kind of wanted to pull back the 808s and kicks, so it makes that impact into the chorus bigger. So I just kind of omit those. So that's pretty much it for the drums on this beat. It doesn't really go much further than that. And at the end of the verse, we bring back that clap slide just because it's an easy transition. So that breaks down on how to make Tyga type of drum patterns in your beat. Making Tyga's drum patterns mostly persists on getting the rhythm, the bounce, and staying within that West Coast sound, because that's kind of what Tyga carries on. My personal favorite way on structuring a beat, it kind of goes like this. You guys kind of see it already. I like to start with the intro, obviously, because that's the introduction. We're kind of giving the listener an idea of what kind of song they're listening to. So that intro needs to be a representation of the full song. You can, I guess, catch your listener with something random in the beginning, but it's kind of good to give them a little bit of a taste. They will know within 5 seconds if they're going to like this song, or they'll have an idea if they would like it. So continuing on, very short intro, only 17 seconds long, and then goes right into that chorus. So that chorus kind of breaks into 2 different parts. There's half of it over here, half of it over here. So this is about 4 bars. Here's 4 bars. So it's a total of 8 bars. The intro is 4 bars. The reason why it is saying otherwise is because we are over 100 beats per minute. So technically that is double time. This is where it can get kind of confusing. So I'm going to try my best not to go too technical, but just know that because we're over 100, although this says 8, it's 4 in this case of this beat, in this scenario. So it's 4 bars, and coming into here, we got our 8-bar chorus. So for the first 4 bars, I kind of keep the melody simpler. I don't have this end of this vocal, so you hear the at the end of the chorus, you hear the flute, but over here, that long drawn out, we don't have that in that first half. And the reason why is I want to make the chorus interesting. If I just kept it these two elements just looping, it's just going to get boring. The person already knows what they're hearing the first half. But on the same token, I don't want to change it up too much where the artist and songwriter would mistaken it for a different section in the song. So if I made this section if I made that section too different than this section, then how would they know that this is still the chorus? Because the reality is, when you put these beats up online or send these beats out to an artist, you're probably obviously not going to be in the recording session. So your opinion and what you say is quite limited to the artist. So you're kind of prepping the artist for your vision of the beat. We want to make sure that this flows into this. And so really, other than that, this little thing right here, which isn't over here, I added, the only other thing that I think of is I added some additional kicks, just some additional kick patterns. Whereas over here, you see we don't got some of those kicks. It's just to add a little bit more bounce. But I made two relatively small changes. But those changes are enough to keep the beat interesting and adding some flavor without doing it too much. And so then we transition into the verse. So intro, chorus, verse. The verse is a 12-bar measure, but the last 4 bars, we don't have an 808 or a kick. So you could kind of say that could be our bridge. So if we were to add this, but that's kind of optional. The artist can continue rapping. So let me explain. So I'm gonna just play this. We don't have those kicks in 808. That omission of the kick in 808 kind of shifts the tone. And when we take that out, we're kind of allowing more headroom. So to show you what I mean, there's a lot of, when I say headroom, so this line being where we can't go past, there's a lot of gap in there. But when we come into that chorus, there's not a lot of gap in here in that chorus because we obviously brought in the kick in 808. So that impact is going to hit harder. So the chorus is just automatically, because there's less elements and it goes into more, it's just going to sound louder, or not only sound louder, but just sound fuller in sense. So I kind of purposely structure that bridge section before the chorus. I always do it before the chorus. Like if I, maybe instead of getting rid of the 808s, maybe I'll add like a bass line, like a Moog bass line, something where it doesn't hit as hard, but there's still some filler there, rather than if we had the 808, like, here, I'll show you what I mean. We'll just even play like right here. Like, yeah, it obviously still hits, but it just sounds better. So then we go back into the chorus, and then we go back to the verse, and it pretty much just loops. I keep it simple because if the artist were to buy the track outs, they could kind of rearrange it slightly, I mean, with their engineer. So my goal is to not complicate it and make it too hard of a beat for them to rap on. It's just to make it good enough so they can understand it and get the vibe and then do their thing over it, fill it in with ad-libs, layers, stabs, whatever, and move on to the next song. So, I'm not trying to overcomplicate this and introduce some crazy beat transition. Not for this. This is a simple Tyga West Coast Club beat. So keep it simple. So then after you structure your whole beat, you're going to probably want to mix it, and as well as doing some automation or changes that automation as in making a change that changes over time, or having a modification that changes over time. And the automation, I have two automation clips. I have my master volume, which is really just controlling this, the master. This is a master track. All of these tracks, everything is going into here. So if I pull this volume down, it's like pulling down everything. You see, calm down. You see, it's like literally automating it. So automation in FL Studio is super easy. Most of the parameters you could just literally right click and create automation clip. You want to change when this EQ turns on, right click it, create automation clip, and now you can change. It's essentially changing this knob. So right here I got this setting for Valhalla reverb, which is a reverb I have on my vocals right here.
Beat It AT, what up?
So let me show you. It's a mix knob, 14%.
Beat It AT, what up?
So you might be wondering, how do you change that? Because this is not part of FL Studio. This is a third-party plugin. But you can still change these parameters through an automation clip. And it's quite simple. So I'm going to show you guys how to change the decay. So I'm going to change this. I just moved it around and I kind of moved it back. So I'm going to go to Tools, Last Tweaked. I'm going to go to Tools, Last Tweaked, Vintage Reverb, create automation clip. Decay. It's very simple. If you don't know how to automate a certain parameter, and if it's related to a different plugin, so because this is to Valhalla Vintage Reverb, just literally tweak it around. Go to Tools, last tweaked, create automation clip. So, and then I can create copy value. Let's just do like right here, paste value. And paste value. So now when we go back, let's play it.
Beat It AT, what up?
It's super simple.
Beat It AT, what up?
I might just keep it because I kind of like it. Kind of like the effect it does. Remove it. I'm going to move it to all the instances where I want it to. So super simple. That's creating automation clips, and you can do that for your reverbs, as you guys could see. You could do it for your EQs. You could do it for anything. If you want to change something in Omnisphere, you want to change something in Electra, that is great. A lot of EDM and DJ type of people do it for like filters and such like that. It's more common there. A lot of, with us rap and hip hop trap producers, usually we're more simple with how we do stuff. So continuing on into more of the mix of things, I didn't really do anything too crazy. Very basic leveling. As you guys can see down here, though, I did a lot of stereo imaging. I got my kick and 808. I made them both mono. I kind of made that string a little bit on a stereoized flute, kept it slightly mono, vocals slightly mono. Over in the vocals, I added a this is a third party. I got it when I did the everything passed from Slate Digital. I got this plugin with them. It's really just shifting pitch, but I put the wet knob. Oh yeah, here, mix. That's essentially this knob right there. I put it halfway. If I turned it off, it adds that 1 octave lower pitch to it. It's just about halfway. EQ. I actually had the UAD, but I had to actually unplug it because I actually have the UAD Apollo Twin, but I can't record my YouTube videos with the Apollo, so I'm using a Focusrite. Because of that, I can't use this plugin, so momentarily I just have the L1 limiter. Then I have the Vintage Verb. I try not to go crazy with reverb because reverb is not, you want to kind of stay careful with that. I do have a little bit of reverb on the flute. Just got some EQ to the bass. Just got some soft clipper to the kick with a bit of EQ around 500 and 4K. I like to have my kick more punchy, not in the bass region, but more. I like to have the kick more punchy in the upper frequencies, mid-range area, just so you can hear it more, like more so on like iPhone speakers, or yeah, just like if you're playing through your laptop or iPhone, I want you to hear the kick. So your iPhone may not have low like the speakers won't have a lot of low frequency, so it won't pick up that kick. And I also don't want my kick to compete against the 808. So that's why I don't do any like major boosting in my kick anymore. I used to, but I've found that it just creates more problems. It's better just to have the kick not compete with that 808 in any way possible, but you don't want to hollow out the kick by removing too much in that low end. Like, I'm not going to do this to my kick. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to keep it where it's at, unless if need be, but for now it doesn't need to do that. It's more so needs to focus around that mid and high frequency, so it just punches through and you can hear it. Simple mix, everything kind of fits together, and it kind of fits together just because I'm using good samples, using good VSTs. And when you do have good samples, good drum samples, and good VSTs, you don't really have to, you still have to mix it, tweak some stuff. You can see I'm doing some minor tweaks, and the EQ helps a lot to get rid of bad frequencies and to push the ones that I want. The EQ helps with that. But if you have bad sounding samples, you're kind of working backwards. So if you guys are needing great samples, go over to beatit.com. We have a whole bunch of drum kits. We got drum kits you guys can buy, as well as free drum kits and sample kits. There's tons of websites, you guys are probably already aware of, where you guys can get drum samples and such, but you got to get quality ones. So I believe everything in here is from a Beat It AT pack, except the obvious melody VSTs. But all of these are from Beat It AT kits. There's not a lot of crazy mixing, so more so of this is a little bit of the automation. I like to make sure my melodies, the drums are above the melodies, so there's not much of a point for me to go into exact details of like the EQ, because it's going to be probably different for you guys based on the samples and VSTs you guys pick. Just make sure that your samples and sounds are not clashing too much with each other. They can clash a little bit, but if it sounds rough, or if you are having troubles hearing the different elements in your beat, you might want to come back to it and try to spend more time on the mix. This is just a quick mix that I made when I made this beat. You're making a beat and there's going to be vocals on it. Don't overly compress this. Don't do too much, because if the artist just buys a MP3 release, if the beat has no room in it because the producer just engineered it so there would be no room, then it's going to be hard for the artist to record his song on it. That's just a small little tidbit. Over in my flute, you can kind of see, like, I'm just most of the things I'm just knocking down that low. If there's a lot of high, I'm pulling that down as well. Now, after mixing the beat and getting a rough mix, I'm gonna move on to mastering. Mastering is just trying to get the most out of what you got from your mix and tracking and everything else. Because we're just mastering a beat, and this is probably not the final step of where this beat will be, since our intention is to have a rapper to rap and sing or record to this. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you guys to mix and master this as the final product. You should mix and master it to the point where it sounds great, and to the average person, they can't hear any problems with it, and it's easy for them to hear every element. So in my EQ for the master, I just did a little dip around that 500 range. The artist's vocal is gonna sit probably from 300 to about 6K, 7K. So the vocal is using that whole little area right there. So keeping that in mind, you can kind of see there's not a lot of clashing in there. There's sounds, there's a lot of signal coming through in here. I'm not denying that. But if we look at that low end, it's really... We're seeing a lot of our sounds in like 1500 in around like 6 to 8K, and then in that low end. So obviously the vocal is not going to sit in that low end, or not much will sit in that low end. But there will be vocals sitting in that 1.5K. So we're going to do, you will want to make sure that you're not having too much of that high end piercing through in that beat. You want enough, but not too much. So guys, a little bit of sound equalizer. I'm just doing the most very, very minimal pump in it. I just like it. I'm not doing this to it. I'm not doing this. I'm not even doing this. I'm literally doing like this. That much. Just a little bit of saturation compression, I guess you could say. It's just adding a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Then after that, I got my ozone. I got a maximizer and then a vintage limiter. So if you want to see kind of like the settings I got, I'm trying to maintain the transients while also not trying to pump it too much, and I want the claps and all that to still be clear. I personally like the IRC 4 modern template or setting. That's just my personal favorite. I find that I use it a lot. There's some people that like the IRC LL, IRC 1, and there's other settings, but I personally like the modern one. And then vintage, same, modern. So I'm gonna play it. That's without it, so it adds a lot of beat to it. That's without it. That's with it. You could just it pumps it up. There's still room. This is kind of what I'm trying to say. There's still room. We can make this go louder. We can make this hit harder and like be very full. I just don't see a purpose on doing that, knowing that there's gonna be vocals on this. That's just me. Some guys want to just, they want to maximize their beat to be as loud as they can, and so it hits. Great. But I already know that this is not the final stage, because this is going to go to an engineer and mixing and mastering engineer for the rapper. They're going to record the rapper. They're going to mix. They might tweak the beat. If they have the track outs and stems, they might tweak it around. They might even change the arrangement. They might remove something. They might change where my kicks come in. They might take away the kicks in the first half of the chorus. I don't know. So I'm not going to be too picky about certain elements just because I know this is going to change down the road, potentially. They might just use it as is. They might get the MP3 track out, record, do a couple little tweaks, put a little mastering, like some pump it a little bit, and then drop it. They might just do that. I'm assuming though that they're gonna buy the track outs, they're gonna get the exclusive rights, they're gonna get it professionally mixed and mastered. They're gonna go back, they're gonna reference the original beat, but they're gonna make it better. That's the idea that I have, and that's usually what does happen. So make sure your beats. This is just a very long way of make sure your beats are sounding good and great and professional, but don't be worried about the technicalities of, oh, I can still get more out of this, or oh, blah 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 blah. And that's really it for the mastering. I just have this limiter on just to kind of see where the headroom is at and what's going on. It's not really doing anything. So yeah, that's this whole entire Tyga, how to make a Tyga type beat. I know it probably went on for quite some time. So this video will be broken down into numerous parts. So if you just wanted to watch a specific part, you guys can. All the specific parts will be uploaded first, and then this full video will be uploaded after. So that is that. Hopefully this helps you guys. If you guys have any other questions, need any help, leave a comment down below. If you guys need samples, drum kits, loops, MIDI packs, or more, be sure to go over to beatitat.com. If you guys want to check out our beats, we also have a beat page there as well. When you go to beatitat.com, you just need to pick if you're a producer or an artist, and then based on that criteria, we'll give you a web page that shows you everything you need. If you want to see what the artists get, you can go there. We offer mixing and mastering services for artists, and we also offer beats as well as drum kits, sample kits, MIDIs, loops, and more for producers. This is Andrew at Beat It AT. If you guys have questions or such, leave a comment down below. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys later.